So when it goes, oh yeah, now we are recording. Great. So first of all, we lost a few minutes, but we'll try to catch up. The good news again is that there is no other representation after this, so we can go over time, I think. My name is Jitesh Doshi. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, and I came here just for this presentation. That's not true, actually. I have my sister visiting, so we had other reasons to be in the area. But I do come to Drupal GovCon every year. I think it's one of the better conferences. The other one, of course, is Florida DrupalCon. Sorry, Drupal Camp, I meant. That's the good one, too. You guys should come to Florida. Again, I'm Jitesh Doshi. I work for Spinspire. It's a boutique Drupal development company out in Jacksonville, Florida. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But the purpose of this talk is to talk about ReactJS and Drupal 8. So, mind you that we will not be learning ReactJS. I cannot teach you ReactJS in 45 minutes. And I obviously cannot teach you Drupal in 45 minutes either. So the assumption is that you know your way around Drupal and you know your way around ReactJS. Okay, if that's not true, then okay, you might still benefit a little bit. At least something will stick. Okay. The main point of the presentation is going to be the interface between ReactJS and Drupal. Actually, whatever you learn here will be applicable to almost every JavaScript framework. So it's not unique to ReactJS, although like somebody was saying to me that, if you put ReactJS in the title presentation, then there'll be more people attending, so. But no, I mean, obviously all the demo and the source code, everything uses ReactJS. And there are a few things specific to ReactJS that you'll find in the source code. So the presentation has accompanying source code. In fact, that is probably the better part of the presentation, the source code. We will be zipping through all the content very quickly, so you might not catch everything that I say in the presentation, but all the source code is with you, and it will remain with you. So here's this is where you should find the source code. It's in this place, bitbucket.org/spinspire/da-react-v2. Why V2? Because this is the version 2 of this presentation. I made the same presentation, or at least on the same topic, last year. That was the version 1. So this is version 2. I think I've learned a few lessons. I think I have improved it in some ways. We'll see. Okay. Let's get going. Here's the presentation. Okay. So like the slides will be available on the GovCon website, and I will link to that. So you'll be able to see the slides. I will also include a link to the source code. So like I said, slides are not as useful as the source code itself is. So and one more thing I wanted to point out was the source code has a very extensive README file. As you can see, this is far more useful than the presentation itself. So, but it'll be useful when you download, you git clone this repository and go through the README. It'll show you how to use it. It'll show you what is the role of each file in there, how to customize the code, and make it your own. All right, let's get going. Motivation. I don't know if I really need to give motivation, but ReactJS is very popular, lots of jobs, lots of clients who want to work with ReactJS, and Drupal is very popular, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So motivation right there. Now, the other thing is there will be some clients who want to use both ReactJS and Drupal, and that is because they have significant investments in Drupal. Their content, they manage their content in Drupal. You don't want a web developer you're on call all the time, every time somebody wants to edit a page. So that's why you have CMS, that's why you have Drupal. But then you might want to have a mini version of your website just for mobile devices or mobile app, for example. So, or you want to expose a subset of your website functionality in a limited version in a ReactJS based application, a JavaScript based application, or a mobile application. So those are all the use cases. Let's talk about the architecture. How will you design this? So here on, my awesome diagramming skills are at display here, very limited as they are. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to have two sites. One site, the site number 2, site 2 in this picture is your Drupal site. This is any Drupal site you might have. This might be your company portal, this might be your customer service portal, agent portal, whatever it might be, right? And that's a Drupal site like many that you know of. You just add one more ingredient to that Drupal site, you add RESTful services. So there's a REST module, we'll look at it in a second. But now the content is being served, you enable that REST module and configure it in a way that it starts serving your nodes as JSON data over HTTP. Okay, so that's what site 2 is doing. And then site 1 is your JavaScript application. So, for example, in this case, site 2 is http spinspire.com, just as an example. And then site 1 could be, some other company.com. And for the, it says 300, it should say 3000, but okay. For your development environment, it could be http localhost port 3000. Okay. So it could be anywhere. It doesn't, these two sites are not related in any way. There could be different domains, different host names, different whatever. But site 1 is your JavaScript application. Could be ReactJS, could be jQuery, could be anything else. And so site 1 is serving the JavaScript code, and site 2 is serving the your node content or other content from Drupal as JSON over REST. And both of them end up inside, on the left you see the browser. They both end up inside the browser. There's a very serious problem here, and that is cross-origin resource sharing. If you have tried to do AJAX requests for which the JavaScript code came from one site, but the AJAX request is going to a different site, which is exactly our case here. Browsers do not allow it. Okay, so once again, let me underscore the problem here. Site 1, which is serving your JavaScript application, React application, and site 2, which is serving your REST services, your Drupal content as REST services. The code that site 1 is serving is going to end up in the browser. It's going to run in the browser, and then it's going to make an AJAX request, not back to site 1, which is allowed, but to a different site, in this case site 2, which is not allowed. By default, that is not allowed. It's considered a cross-origin request. The origin of the JavaScript is site 1, and it is trying to make a call, an AJAX request to site 2, which is a different origin. It's a cross-origin request. And so I'm sorry, if you already know about cross-origin resource sharing, all of this is old news, and apologize for repeating it. But for anybody who hasn't worked with this before, this would be a very, very annoying browser security feature. And we can talk about why does this feature exist. Well, because if this feature did not exist, then anybody could write JavaScript. When you visit the site, they could download JavaScript and then look for bankofamerica.com session and then start making calls on your behalf to whatever bank you might have. Replace that bankofamerica.com with your bank's website address. And that's how any JavaScript downloaded from any website would be able to make AJAX requests on your behalf using your session, using your authentication cookies, as if it was you. You wouldn't even know. So that's why cross-origin requests are not allowed, except when both sides decide to collaborate. And that's where CORS, cross-origin resource sharing, comes into picture. It's a browser pattern. It's a feature of browsers that allows cross-origin resources to be shared. We'll come to it in a second. So now let's get back to what we were trying to do. So here we should talk about where the source code is. It's right there, bitbucket.org/spinspire/d8-react-v2, version 2. Okay, there is a custom module. Once you download the source code, and I can show you. So here, in the in Drupal/headless directory, there is a custom module. This module is not required. It is there only for your convenience, because it has some built-in configuration that once you enable this module, you get all of this ready to go. But in reality, when you are doing your own development, you should probably not actually enable this module itself. You should study this module, because this module, for example, has this headless.info.yaml has dependency on REST module, serialization module, and just for good measure, node and user module, which I suspect are enabled in your Drupal site. But in any case, REST and serialization modules, by depending on these two modules, it will enable them. But that's not enough. It enables those modules, and then it also comes with some other configuration, which is, this one is very important, rest.resource. So it enables certain, lets you serve the node entity as a REST service. And it allows certain operations, and it says, I want to use cookie authentication. This will not make sense at this point. Once I go to the UI and show you where this is, it'll make more sense. Next, the other thing that this module comes with is a custom view. So here's a custom view, and the job of this custom view is, for the purpose of this demo, serve a list of nodes so that my Ajax application, my single page application, my React application can show all the nodes that are there in my website. I'll show you this in a second also. So, and then finally, and this probably is the most important thing, because this is where I was talking about cross-origin resource sharing. I have a headless.services.yaml. Headless is the name of my module. So I have some services.yaml settings, and that is top level key parameters has course.config. Course again stands for cross-origin resource sharing. And we are enabling course, and we are allowing certain headers and allowing certain methods. But most importantly, we are allowing a certain origin. So in my case, I want to, I'm doing development from my local machine. So my React application, my JavaScript application is going to run on localhost 3000. And therefore, I am telling Drupal that if the cross-origin request comes from localhost 3000, then it is okay to let the browser use your existing session and make cross-origin requests. This is again to bypass the browser security feature, which prevents all cross-origin requests. So, okay, these, like I was saying, that you don't have to actually use this module. You simply have to learn from it, and you could possibly do this in your own configuration, which means you could put this in your services.yaml file, these settings. But by enabling this module, it all happens automatically for you. Okay, so, oops. So that was the custom module. You'll enable that custom module, and then the rest of the code from here to here is all React application. I combine them into a single code repository just for the sake of convenience. Otherwise, they're going to two different places. The highlighted code runs on my localhost dev site, That's the ReactJS application, while this headless module goes on your Drupal site. That's the site 2. Okay. So once you do those things, let's just go back to the presentation. So let's look at what RESTful services will become available in Drupal. Instead of talking about it, let's actually do it. So let me go to this site called. So I have a site in cloud called demo.jitesh. Someplace. Okay. So this already has some content. So what I want to do is I want to start from scratch. So let me start from scratch by drush -y SQL drop. This is the wrong place. Okay, so this will destroy my site, and now when I visit the site, it detects that the database is empty. So let's start from scratch, and this should install my site. What time is it? So this is a basic plain vanilla standard Drupal install. Let me just go through this quickly. Okay. Now we have our empty Drupal site. Let us start by creating some empty content. So let me just some sample content basically. I'm enabling the admin toolbar. I'm going to enable devel generate module. Okay. So now that I have devel generate enabled, I can go back, reload, configuration, development, generate content. Right now my site is empty. As you saw, the front page had nothing in it. I'm going to generate 50 articles, and that should be good. Okay. What? Okay. Let me see if I can generate the content. Alright, so here's my drush command. Maybe this will work. Oh, says it worked. Let's see if it did. When Drupal's own UI doesn't work, try drush. And oh, yeah, it worked in this case. So there it is. So now I have a bunch of meaningless content. Obviously I need that because I'm going to show you my ReactJS application. So now let's go to, but before we get to ReactJS, let's just understand what Drupal RESTful services are doing. So if I click on any node, this is node 50, I should be able to, if you want it to be served as JSON over REST, you give the same node path, but then you give it a query parameter of format equal to JSON, and it says not acceptable format JSON. So which means RESTful services are either not enabled or not configured to serve JSON. Let's fix that. To fix that, I could just enable the REST. So there is a REST module. It's here. I mean, obviously it's in core. And if I say look for REST. So there is RESTful web services. This is the core module, but this is a contrib module. Strangely enough, you can RESTful services and their implementation, etc., comes with core, but configuring them through a UI is not possible in core. For that, you need a contrib module called REST UI. So we can enable both of them. Let's just enable both. So it says you need serialization module. Do you want to enable? Yeah, sure. Serialization is good. Okay, now that I've enabled that, I can go to Web Services REST. Keep in mind, this UI is there because of REST UI module and not because of REST module. So REST module doesn't have a UI. So here, this is how extensive the Drupal RESTful service subsystem infrastructure is. You can manage actions, base field overrides, blocks, comments, comment types, contact form, contact message, content, which is node. This is what most people are interested in. Content types, custom block, and so on, so forth. Files, form modes. I mean, pretty much every entity that you would want to manage and more is manageable through REST. So let us enable only one, which is this one, the node one. So for serving content, you want it to serve JSON, you want it to allow get, post, delete, and patch modules. Again, just a quick recap: get is for retrieving, post is for inserting or creating new node, delete is for deleting, of course, patch is for updating the resources. And we want to do that in JSON, maybe not in XML, at least for this. And this one is important: authentication providers. You could use, if you are just retrieving node that is already published, you will probably succeed anyways, whether you are authenticated or not. But if you are updating, deleting, or inserting nodes, most likely you need to be logged in. And here's the issue. When you are on the Drupal UI, you are logged in, Drupal knows you are logged in. Do you know how Drupal knows you are logged in? Anybody? How does Drupal know that you're a logged in user? What's the mechanism in HTTP that is telling Drupal?
CSRF checking?
Well, yeah, that is if you're talking about RESTful services. But in general, outside of RESTful services, what is the cookie? Sorry? Yeah, cookie. Yeah, so that's right. In PHP, your session cookie is what establishes your session ID, and that session ID, of course, is linked to your authenticated session, right? So that's how not just Drupal, but any PHP server knows that you're logged in, right? Okay. This checkbox says that when a REST request comes, check for their cookie. There are other methods. OAuth is another one. Basic authentication is there. But we will choose cookie authentication. Why? Because at least for our purposes, we want the user to log into Drupal as normal, if they are going to make any changes, that is. And then they switch to the Ajax or the JavaScript or React app, and they just borrow that session. And they continue working. Although the Ajax application is running from localhost 3000 and not this site, whatever this is, demo.spinspire.com, right? Even then, the same authentication cookie will be used, and I'll show you how that is allowed. It's not normally allowed, but it can be. You can make an exception. So with these things in place, let's save this configuration. Once you save that, now you can go to the node again. Right, node 49 in this case, let's say. And now if you say question mark query string parameter format equal to JSON, and now it's that same node in all its glory is available as a JSON resource. So this is parsed version. I have a plugin that is parsing it for me. But if I go to raw, then this is how it's being served. Let's go back to parse now. This is much easier to read, much easier to comprehend. So this is the basic. I think most of you probably have seen, right? This is how RESTful services work in Drupal. That's fine. Let us now talk about a few other things. I need for my application to work, I need a view. I need a list of all nodes. And for better or for worse, there is no RESTful service that serves, there's no RESTful service out of the box that serves a list of nodes. So you need to create a view. So, which means you go to structure, views, add new view, and then you enable, the display type will be REST display type, and so on and so forth. I'm sorry, I won't be able to go through all of those things because that will take all the entire presentation. So that's why I will go and enable my module. If I said, because it has that view built in. If I said rush enable headless, which is the module, it will fail because headless is trying to create a configuration that already exists. Remember, I just enabled REST UI and REST, and then I enabled the node entity. So headless is trying to do the same exact thing. So these two are conflicting with each other. To get rid of that problem, all I have to do is just PMU. PMU is like uninstall the REST module, and that will uninstall REST UI as well. Once I uninstall, I can enable headless. Works fine. And at this point, this service to serve the node as JSON still works. Yeah. But in addition to that, I have created a view, and that view can serve the list of, this is the view node/rest I've created, and you can see that here if you go to structure views, and there should be this node list RESTful. So this is the view that my module created. You can go edit, look at it. Again, all this code is available to you, so you can look at it later in your own time how it does that. But in any case, the output of that is very simple: node ID, the URL path, and the title. That's it. So these are the things that it is serving. So once you have that view, now we are ready to launch our application, the ReactJS application, which was, for better or for worse, already there, so I could just kill it. So here's my application. This is the same application that we saw on that Bitbucket UI. It has index.html, but more importantly, it has an SRC directory, and in SRC directory there is an index.js. Again, I cannot go over the mechanics of writing a ReactJS application. If you have written one, then you know how you can use Webpack to do what it does, compile and transpile, and how you can use package.json to define your commands. So the command that I want to use is npm run dev. Sorry, once again I repeat, the source code is there, so it's not like I'm leaving you to your own devices. It's just that we cannot cover that in this. Okay. So let's run the dev server. So the website is now being served from localhost 3000. If I go to localhost 3000, did you see that there was a little delay after which the list of nodes showed up because it was making an AJAX request to this view. Now, what I have done is let me just open this. This is VS Code. Yes, so I have a file called config.sample.js that comes with the source code, and you're supposed to copy it into config.js and edit. So that's what I did. I copied it to config.js and I pointed it to the URL of the Drupal site that I want to manage from this ReactJS application. So once you put that URL in there, the ReactJS application will start making AJAX calls to that site. So it did, and that's how it got this list. So if I go in here, and I go to my list of content, and these are Latin names, so very hard for me to pronounce, but hopefully we can see that they are same or similar. It's hard to say. They are in a different order. It's hard for me to tell you exactly. Let me just update one of them. Where's the node 50? Let's edit node 50. Okay. Node 50. Edit it, and that would be this one. Wallet path. Okay, and that is this one. I'm just going to change the title and put number 2 in front of it and save it. And if you refresh, yeah, so that's the same node. Okay, at least it's there. Now, from this UI, I can issue a command, but before I issue anything, I want to inspect and open the network tab, because that is what, oh, this is very small font. I should increase the font. If I go to network tab, so this button, if I click on it, it will issue an AJAX request to delete the node. So let's see what it does actually. So if I click that, it made several requests. The first one was the options request. This options request is called the pre-flight request. This is the one that is, before it talks to the server, it says, I am from a different origin, and would you let me is it appropriate for me to make calls to you? And so these are the access control headers in the request, and the server responds with a 200 OK, which means yes, it's okay, you can make the real. So pre-flight request precedes the actual request, and here's the actual request, which is, as you can see, request method delete. And again, and the origin in the pre-flight itself, you'll see that the request headers has origin of localhost 3000, and the response header says access control allow origin localhost 3000. So this is what course is doing, cross origin resource sharing. Without this, this request will not be allowed, because if they allowed it, any random site could start doing things with other sites that you're already logged into, and then that's completely without your knowledge, or they could do anything really. So that's why you must trust. Not only you must trust these two sites, the sites must trust each other, and the CSRF provides a mechanism for that trust. The other site, site number 2, and the cross origin site basically issues a header, which is that allow this origin is allowed. Also, these methods are allowed, and these extra headers can be shared. Okay. And this is quite important. Cross access control allow credentials, which means that is why you are able to use the AJAX request is allowed to include the authentication cookie into the request, and the server does not reject it, even though it's a cross origin request. So this is what, because I'm logged in as admin in this tab, I can, whatever I do here in this other tab, which is a completely different, look, it's a different website, not same as this website, right? It's a different website, and yet the cookie is accepted by that original site. So now when I click delete, it issues the delete request, and the response is success 204, and then finally it makes another AJAX request to fetch that view, which is this view, the node REST view, this one, right? which is same as what we were looking at in the view earlier. Okay, so once it does that, it refreshes this list of nodes, and that v2, that particular node that we were looking at, this node, is gone. So if I refresh, it'll say not found because we have deleted it. So let's try one more thing, which is creation of a node. So if we try to create the node, let's clear this and let's go over that same exercise again. So let's say demo title 1, demo body 1. So just basic, this is the creation form. When I submit that form, it again does the same things. It first does a pre-flight request, then it does the actual post. Remember, post is for creating, and then the other two are same again to refresh this page. And as you can see, it created this, the view returned demo title 1. If you click on it, it actually lets you, this is what we just created. All right, so this is the demo part of it. Let's talk about the technology behind what's going on. But before that, so we already looked at, okay, so we can retrieve a particular node using this URL. We can create new node by posting to not /node, but to /entity/node. Why? I don't know, but that's the path. Then to update, you have to just issue a patch request to a node URL, and then delete request to delete it. And like I already said about the view that can serve REST. And then you can of course do much more. Remember in that REST UI, we had a whole bunch of other services. So let me re-enable REST UI, which is rush -y en REST UI. So once I enable that, this REST UI back here. So like I was saying, much more. By much more, I mean all these disabled services. If you are interested in creating users over Ajax or any of these other things, you can do that. So at this point, I think a message from our sponsors. Now, just a little bit about our company. So, like I was saying, I work with Spinspire. We are a Drupal's focused software development consulting company, and all of our developers are in Jacksonville, Florida. And we have top-level modules contributed to Drupal.org and the Drupal community, popular tags and PRLP, which are being used in thousands of different sites. And we have some interesting federal government clients, Florida Blue, which is Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida, Nike, and others. So check us out on the web at spinspire.com. This is just smiling faces of our team. Back to the topic at hand. So, in order to actually make these requests, not only you have to include the cookie so that you are authenticated, you also have to include one more header called the CSRF token. So the name of the header is XCSRF token, and you can obtain a value for that token from REST/session/token. So let's check that out. So if I go to REST session token, and then we'll talk about what it does. So here, this is the token. The purpose of the token is to make sure, in the absence of you being logged in, once you're logged in, I don't totally know why CSRF token is needed when authentication cookie is actually present. If any of you know, please let me know. But when you're not logged in, I can explain why that's needed. Basically, the CSRF stands for what is it? Cross-site request forgery, right? Is that what she said? Yeah. Cross-site request forgery. Well, the token says that this is not a cross-site request forgery. And the idea is you don't want others, like for example bots, to do automated requests. Although I don't quite fully know why that a bot could not obtain this token and start issuing requests. So I'm a little foggy myself on the CSRF token, but it's needed, it's required. And this is the reason why, if you look at the source code, and or you can look at it here. Give me a second. How do I increase the font? Yeah. Okay, so here in the ajax.js file of the source code, this is kind of important. What we do is we make an initial request. By the way, we use Axios for all Ajax requests, and I recommend you because it's very, very helpful. We make an Axios request to this token URL, and token URL is the one that I just showed you just a second back. And we get the token. Once we get the token, we then make all the subsequent, we create a new instance of Axios requester. Axios is an object. It's a library, but you can also create an Axios object from it, which is what we are doing. But then we give it some initial configuration that all my requests are going to be relative to this base URL and with credentials equal to true, which means if I'm logged in, I want you to send the cookie. That's important, so that it can use my admin session in the different tab. And here's the important one, X CSRF token. Whatever token you obtained in the previous request, just use that from here on for the rest of this application session. And then, since all of our requests are going to make a request in JSON format and want response in JSON format, include this parameter, the query string parameter as well. So once you initialize a singleton, an Axios singleton like this, all subsequent requests will simply use this singleton, and that way in my index.js, wherever I'm using Axios, I can start, I get that singleton here, and then I can start issuing commands like delete or update or whatever, patch, and so on and so forth. So this ajax.js kind of packs a lot of punch. It has a lot of black magic in it, and I would recommend that you read this carefully. And that's the hallmark of a well-written application, that it is compact, and this one is compact, and from here on all the magic is hidden inside ajax.js, while index.js simply starts making calls like delete. If you try this axios.delete on a node ID like this, it won't work because there will be so many things missing from it. No CSRF token, no authentication cookie, and format equal to JSON is missing. So if you don't have those things, it won't work. But all of those things are packed, are encapsulated inside your Axios object. Okay. So that is, I guess that's something that a CSRF token is needed for that reason. Oops, what did I just do? All right, and then cross-origin resource sharing. We talked about what it is for, how it works, and here it shows what you need to do in your services.yaml. Just include this information, course.config, enable true, allowed headers. These headers are allowed, and then the methods. Allowed origin, in my slide I'm saying star, but of course you should never have star in your, unless you're just developing and you don't care, that's fine. But generally in any serious environment, please do not include star as your allowed origins. And supports credentials equal to true means that you are allowing, you're telling Drupal to accept an incoming cookie, credentials coming as cookies. and you're also telling the browser that it's okay to include the credentials. All right, so obviously we did not talk a whole lot about React.js itself. The source code is there. You can see how it works. I don't think we would have enough time to talk about those things. We are almost out of time already. So let me just get through the couple of other things that we want to get through. All right, so how should you design if you are going to by the way, this information is better described in the readme.md file. So when you go to Bitbucket, you'll see that as the first thing right here. All of this. So please do read the readme. That's why it's called readme. Let's talk about your general approach to development. Obviously, if you're doing React development, you're going to install npm. You're going to figure out your package.json, how you want to structure it, your webpack, etc. But the main thing is you should develop your React application independent of your Drupal site first. By itself, give it the UI that you want, give it the routes that you want, and so on and so forth. Right? Eventually, get your Drupal site ready. Drupal site is in a different server, probably, in a different URL, different host name, different domain maybe. And your React application, at least in the beginning, will run out of your local host port 3000. Eventually, it will be deployed somewhere else. So these two are independent of each other. As you are developing it using the dev server, configure. You can take this this code, copy this code, modify it. But remember if you go to src, there is a config.sample.js. Copy this to config.js and then edit the URL of the server. Okay, just edit it to whatever the URL of your Drupal server is. Once you do that, you will be able to, your application will be able to make AJAX requests. All the AJAX code is already in there, so that you have plenty of examples to go by. And again, like I said before, if you're using Axios already, then you already know the benefits of Axios. Initially, when I was doing React.js programming, I started out using jQuery for my AJAX requests. But somebody then turned me on to Axios, and I see the benefits right away, because it treats AJAX requests in a more object-oriented manner, because it lets you create an Axios object which you have pre-configured with, headers, credentials, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of good. All right. So I think there is a lot that is packed in the source code. I don't quite know which part to drill into, but I would say you can reach out to me. My email address is right there. Twitter handle is there, although I'm not very active on Twitter. You could, in fact, if you just go to the Bitbucket source code repository, I think most of your questions are answered in there. I've tried my best to document it properly with sufficient comments as well as a good README, I think. And there is last year's presentation video is already there. It's online. If you look for it, you'll find it. If you just say Drupal GovCon, ReactJS, Jitesh Doshi or something, you might find it. Or you could go to our Spinspire's YouTube channel. There are plenty of tutorial videos and screencasts. You could look at those. Like I said, you could always reach out to me by email. And hopefully the screencast for this presentation will be available online soon. So I will include that in the description of the presentation, as well as in this Google Google Doc. So this, by the way, this entire presentation is a Google Doc, and that will be available, and it will be linked. It's already linked actually from the when you go to Drupal GovCon site, or it will be in the next few minutes. Right? Does anybody have questions? I'm supposed to keep 15 minutes for questions. Yes.
What's the advantage of doing it like this instead of just using Ajax on your Drupal site?
Using Ajax on your Drupal site. Well, yeah, that is a perfectly legitimate way of doing things. So by that you mean you will you have Drupal site which is providing the HTML, and then you are adding JavaScript, possibly jQuery or ReactJS maybe even, right? And then you're making. So in that situation, it's not cross origin at all. It's the same origin. You know, your JavaScript is on the same URL as your Drupal site. So nothing cross origin about it. That's a legitimate way of doing things. The only problem is that means if you have a mobile phone hitting that, they have to load your entire Drupal site, your Drupal page with all of its stuff that goes with it. So a lot of times people are managing their content in Drupal, but then they don't want to serve their content from Drupal. So that could be a reason to do that. Although what you are saying also is a legitimate use case. For example, if you had an Ajax-based, a JavaScript-based shopping cart, for example, so that in your Drupal site you would do this.
So what would be a good server architecture setup if you need to serve files?
So files?
Yeah.
When you say files, you mean just read-only files like creation or serving?
Like for example, we were using the Headless Drupal to manage like PDF files or zip files that lives on that server.
Mm-hmm.
So your client, like ReactJS, is live on a different server, but when you make a request from the client server to the Drupal server asking for these files, like they're coming from different origins. And what would be a good setup to
Actually, you're in luck there because it is not. So I'm assuming if this is a, let's say it's an image. PDF is a different example, but image is a better example because an image is something you might want to embed inside an HTML page, right? If it's a PDF, any case, you can just present a link, a URL link to that PDF, they click on it and it opens in their Chrome or it downloads. One way or another it shows up. So in which case, you've broken out of your application anyways. Hopefully you target a new tab, so therefore it doesn't overtake your application. But so PDF is very straightforward, and there is no cross-origin concerns here at all, because the request that you are making is not Ajax. It's like any other standard request. Somebody clicked on a link and they're issuing a GET request. So there is nothing cross-origin about it. Now going back to the other thing where it was an image. Let's say there was an image and a ReactJS application generated an IMG src equal to that other place, that kind of a request. That is also not considered a cross-origin request. It is called hot linking, something like that, hot linking linked image. Basically, site 1 has an image embedded in it which is hosted by site 2, right? Again, that's not cross-origin. Well, it is cross-origin in one sense, but it's not Ajax request. So therefore, it's anyway allowed. You don't even need special headers for it.
But both the Headless Drupal server and the React server have to be publicly available.
Yes, and your Drupal server is anyway serving static files. I mean, in fact, it's not Drupal who is serving. In most cases, public files at least are served by your Apache or Nginx, not by Drupal. So yes, this will work just fine. But if you're talking about, imagine if you had a situation where you wanted to upload files or modify files in some way. In that situation, you would have to enable this. Wait, where is it? Configuration, web services, REST. So there is a file service here, right there. file entity service. If you enable this one, you will be able to upload files from your Ajax application, from your React application, but it's going into Drupal. So, questions? Comments? Yes.
Are you able to serve React files from within Drupal, and are there any advantages to doing that?
That's right. So in the previous version, remember this is version 2 of my presentation. Last year's presentation, which is available on the web, and its source code is also. In fact, if you take the URL of this year's presentation, which is V2, and if you remove the V2 from it, then that's last year's presentation, and that does exactly what you are saying. So you're saying, what if your React application is served by Drupal itself? Perfectly fine. And in that situation, again, as the previous question was asked, in that situation, it's not really cross-origin. It's not considered cross-origin because they are both being served from the same URL. How to do that? The answer would be, if you create a special directory in your doc root, let's call it, in the last year's presentation, I did do just that. I created a directory called /app, which is inside doc root, just at the same level as your index.php, there is a /app. And then what I was doing was, you can do it in two ways. You could say mydrupalurl.com/app/index.html, and now that's serving your site. Or you could create a subdomain. Instead of serving from mydrupalurl.com, you say app.mydrupalurl.com, and that also works. Okay. I think in that situation, it might be considered cross-origin. I'm not totally sure. I think it is. So you will need cross-origin headers for that. But interestingly, your cookies, usually the cookie domain being mydrupalurl.com, they are shareable across all subdomains. Most cookies are. So authentication will be readily reusable. In any case, to answer your question, you could serve your React app. The only thing is, it would be very hard to logically separate. This is the reason why I created a new updated version of this presentation, is because I've actually tried to do application development the way you're saying, and I did that. But what I realized soon was that over time, I lost the distinction between where my React app ends and where Drupal begins, because they are both in the single code base, and they are being served from the same server. So I was cutting lots of corners. And I realized that's probably not the best way to do it. So that's why in the new version of my application, as well as new version of this presentation, says your React application and your Drupal are totally separate. Separate web server, separate hosts, separate URLs. Kind of works. I mean, I think it's a better architecture, although the other one is totally legitimate. Any?
What about the major corporations? Do they usually put it in Drupal, or do they?
I would say it's not so much about the size of the corporation. It's mainly why, what you're trying to do. If you are trying to, so there is this pattern that I use sometimes called islands of content, islands of application in an ocean of content. Meaning to say, your browser is filled with a Drupal page, that's the ocean of content, in which you can put an island of application, which means you could create, let's say, for example, a block, a custom block, in which you put some HTML and include your bundle.js, which is your React application, and now that's your island of application. In this scenario, we have to combine the React application completely inside the Drupal setup. And that sometimes makes sense, as I gave the example, in case of, let's say you want to have a shopping cart in your Drupal site. And the shopping cart is pure JavaScript shopping cart. It's not a Drupal commerce type shopping cart. And your shopping cart items are, let's say, products, which are Drupal nodes, a content type called product. So in that situation, everything is Drupal, and the only role that JavaScript is playing is giving you a special UI for shopping cart management, drag and drop, and add, remove, those kinds of UI. And eventually, when you check out, you might be making a traditional Drupal post, or you could be making an Ajax post, doesn't matter. So in that situation, you probably don't want to separate your React application completely out of Drupal. But then let me give you a different use case. Imagine that you have a very large site, very complicated site with lots of a very complex page and heavy pages, right? But then you want a super lightweight version of your website just for mobile devices, or maybe a mobile application, mobile app, Cordova, PhoneGap type of app, which is written in ReactJS and just packaged as mobile app. In that situation, you don't want any Drupal to get into your ReactJS. Your ReactJS app is completely independent of Drupal. And in fact, the reason why you have a separate ReactJS app is because you don't want Drupal to get into this picture as much as possible. The only thing you want from Drupal is the content, the body of the content, the structure of the content, which is the JSON representation of your content. And your application knows how to render that content. And Drupal should keep its coming hands out of the whole thing. So in that situation, it makes sense to completely separate it. Does that answer? Anything else? Any other questions? Well, thank you. I have my card here if anybody wants to take one. Sitting right here. And feel free to chat me up. Thank you all.